Let me talk to you about India and the context that India operates in, given our size. We don't have a very tech-savvy population as, for example, in Singapore. However, recently, just a couple of weeks ago, we have a new government in Delhi led by the Aam Aadmi Party, and the Chief Minister opened up an anti-corruption line. So you can call up and complain if there's an act of corruption, and within 36 hours they had something like 40,000 phone calls coming in. So if the governments open up channels of communication, you will have a lot of people calling in, and that traffic will continue provided the government is able to address some of those concerns. Otherwise, it's just a fancy idea, but not much to follow up on. So that's the acid test. It's not so much the traffic, but if the traffic has sustained, is the government responding well enough?
Mr. Xu, you have enormous experience managing development work around the world, ranging from Kazakhstan to East Timor. Do you see this as a global phenomenon?
Thank you. I think definitely, what we're seeing is the use of technology, to support sustainable human development everywhere. And the example you give here, just an indication that technology, information and communication technology, has changed the way that citizens and the government are interacting with each other. And some examples of how this have helped changing the way development is taking place. In Bangladesh, for example, one of the most populous countries in the world, we worked with the government, the Prime Minister's office, to promote the use of information technology to deliver social services at the lowest level of the government unit, the union level. So over the last 5, 6, 7 years, actually, we established 4,500 information and service centers, in every union, right? So which, allows population to access government services such as birth certificate, insurance, personal insurance, right? Work permit, registration, and even obtaining English language trainings at the lowest level of the administrative units. Through fairly simple technology, right? So I think so if you, as Madhukar said, if the government is committed to use information technology to provide the service, you can really make it at scale and changing the way that government provides service and the public access service. This is in Bangladesh. And again, if you go to countries like, again, Philippines, right? We have most recently, there was a very serious typhoon in Haoliang, right? And locally known as Yolanda, which really devastated a tract of, the country, in the central region. And so what we did is that we worked with the local government, with the local population to provide the cash for work, right, to provide immediate livelihood support to a population. But how do you pay the population, right? So we used a very simple technology that's a mobile phone, right? And but to team up with a local service provider, smart mobile phone service provider, and also the land bank of the government, so that the government bank would provide a bank account, right, with a smart card to the workers, and the mobile phone would allow us to use the mobile SMS to inform the workers when the money is credited to the account, right? So in areas where it's very remote, there's not a lot of service provision at this time. And for people who do not really have a traditional, very strong, interaction with bank services, so this kind of, use of technology allows us to really pay people very quickly and very effectively, right? So I think these are just the two examples. You have many examples everywhere.
Yeah, those are two fantastic examples, aren't they? Madhukar, in terms of improving effectiveness and efficiency of government as well, have you seen other examples of the impact this is having and the sort of revolution that is going on?
So one of the advantages of technology, and especially when you introduce technology in existing business processes, there's always this opportunity to actually rethink the business process, which is extremely fundamental to how things can change over time. If you just add technology as a layer to an existing business process, that may not be the optimal use of technology in most cases. Again, in India, we've had several examples within government and outside government where technology has been used in very meaningful ways to actually solve a number of public problems. One of the sort of massive uses of technology has been in digitizing land records. So fundamental to a lot of the poor across the country, and Karnataka state actually led that initiative very successfully, which is now being emulated by other states in the country. Recently, of course, there's a massive project that the government of India has initiated called the Aadhaar project, which is to provide a unique identification number to everyone in the country, every resident in the country, not just a citizen in the country. And the idea is, of course, that would become the basis for targeting services and benefits to people, depending on a range of other profile characteristics of those individuals. If there are people below the poverty line, there are certain benefits that they get. So I know through the Aadhaar number, can link up to a bank account and then transfer those benefits directly to that individual. Obviously, for a country of the size of India, 1 billion people, 550 million Aadhaar numbers have been sort of issued already over the past 3.5 years. There are concerns about privacy and a whole other set of issues that come up because of such a number. But there is always this sort of hope that technology can actually address some of the fundamental challenges. And one of the claims that the Aadhaar team makes is, look, if you actually know how to target people, if you can deduplicate beneficiaries, if I'm not masquerading as 3 different people each time there's a benefit that I can receive, because the Aadhaar number prevents that, then corruption will come down significantly. And so there's a number of benefits you can derive, but obviously there are questions on privacy and other issues that you need to take care of when you think of technology.
If I may, I think, again, 2 quick examples. One is that technology definitely helps to reduce the level of corruption because it takes away the discretionary power of officials, right, in the process. And again, one example, for example, in Turkey, right, the judicial system is now using SMS, based information system to inform people the status of their cases, right? So that people don't have to go to the courts, to find out the status, and they will find out automatically through the notification system. And also, I think technology really, changes the way that government and citizens interact when it comes to policy decisions, right? One example that we supported in Madagascar, vis-a-vis how young people, aged, I think from 14 to 39, they wanted to know this group of population think about issues like human rights, citizenship issues, and employment issues. So we again work with our partners and reached out to, I think, 44,000 young people, a population in that, a cohort. And with a provision of free SMS in the service, right? So over a period of short period of time, we generated 50,000 messages. And then you really know what your target group think about these issues, and you can reflect them in your policy decisions that better target their needs. So this way, through this means, that you can really make public service more efficient and more effective.
But do you think there is a problem there that to make that sort of change work, you need a technologically savvy population? So when we are concerned about vulnerable, poor elderly, remote, people living in remote areas and so on. Do you think there is some digital divide still, and what sort of progress are we making on that?
Yeah, anyway, maybe I just say a few words first. I think Madhukar just mentioned actually the Indian population may not be, most digital technology savvy. But I think when it comes to use of technology, for service provision, one thing you do need to be careful is not to sort of increase the digital divide, because you want to make sure that the technology you choose actually serves the purpose of service provision, right? Not exclude more people, who may not be tech savvy enough. Right? And so you can do a few things. You can one use the technology that are not that does not require internet access, for example. Right? You can use mobile phone technologies that are more accessible than internet. And you have many examples, like in Kyrgyzstan, right? We have an example where we worked with medical institutions to provide long-distance medical services, right? So that people in rural areas, the medical doctors in rural areas can work with the doctors in capital to access medical advice for life-saving advice, right? And for prescriptions, right? And you really can choose technology to meet the demand. You can also use multiple technologies, internet portals, call centers, or mobile phones together, to meet the needs of different segments of the population. And the one thing also is that it's not only about the tech savviness of the users, but also it requires the government to have the right capacity to actually use technology effectively. So one thing I think we should always pay attention is to build the capacity of the government institutions over a period of time. Right? So with political commitment, you build the capacity of institutions so that technology actually really improves service provision over long term.
Yeah, that's a very important point. Madhukar?
Yeah, clearly, when you think of technology, clearly on the one side there's the supply side capacity issue, and what kinds of technology can be used and developed for governments to be more effective. And the other side is the demand side, where the citizen directly uses technology and engages with the state in different ways to actually seek services from government. And so those are two distinct animals because the capacities are very different. However, having said that, again, in the case of India, we've had hundreds of millions of mobile phones come up. And if you look at the trends in purchases of higher end phones, that's growing up at a dramatic rate as well. So I think the challenge is upon all of us now, in some ways, to think about creating solutions for those who are not on those really smart phones, right? And it's already beginning to happen in different ways, but I think the challenge is more and more to do that. But also for those who are neo-literates, who are newly literate, they've just figured out how to use a mobile phone, they can read a little bit, not a whole lot of content. How do you package content in a way through a mix of audio, video, short text, all of that? So that's a challenge that's incumbent upon all of us to change. And I was reflecting as we discussed this, and you set that tone right at the beginning, I think we are in some ways the post-digital age pre-digital age folks sitting and discussing technology in some ways. If you got younger folks, 20-year-olds, to talk about this, I think the conversation would be very different. And they would view technology in so many different ways that we couldn't possibly imagine.
Right, yes, that's a slightly worrying thought, but can I ask you a follow-up on, collectively everyone here in the room, and the purpose I think of today is really to promote open government, much more effective relationship between citizen and state, much more empowered citizens, and a much more accountability and transparency. And that is our big hope, and that development through that will be more effective, poverty reduction will be enhanced, and so on. But there's always politics. So do you think in your experience, that politicians fear sort of progress in this area simply because of that potential to really change the way that the citizen engages with the state? And you mentioned the very interesting progress or changes which are going on in India. Can you give us some insight on that?
Surely. I think we've had this Right to Information Act passed in India about 8 years ago now, and that really has fundamentally transformed the equation between the citizen and the state. Now, you talked about the 1.6 million number, but there are millions of applications going to public agencies in India on an annual basis, and citizens are seeking information. So the politics has in some way been pressurized to sort of shift away from business as usual, hide behind the Iron Curtain in some ways, and say, look, we can't give it to you anymore. But so that I think is fundamentally changing. But also, you can always trust the government and the civil servants to find innovative ways of actually dealing with this. One way to do it is to say, look, I'll hide behind something, but the other way to do it is I'll give you so much information that you can't figure out really what you want. So, and you can see that in abundance in lots of ways. So
yes, yeah. I remember that from my experience of working on the Transparency Initiative, and after a lot of pressure, a particular government said, fine, we will give you all the information, and put, I think it was 21 million pages of documentation, completely unaudited, on a website somewhere, and I won't
and you go figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. So that brings us then perhaps to big data, because a few years ago perhaps that became completely meaningless, but the big data revolution that we see going on around us, I think really is making potentially a very profound change. So of course there are challenges with this, there's data security and threats to privacy and so on, but Mr. Xu, how do you see the role of big data in opening up and improving the delivery of public services?
I think in terms of data, data can do a number of things, right? If you can understand the data effectively, the data can really give you signs of early warning of certain trends and issues. And if you use data effectively, you can come up with the right policy response. And you can also use the live data to monitor whether your policy response is effective or not. So I think the use of data is very powerful. But you really needed to have the right expertise to use the data. The UN has a program called Global Pulse, I think many of us know. And there's a lab in Jakarta in partnership with the Indonesian government. They have done a number of quite innovative experiments. One of the things that they've done successfully is to look at the social media data, to see if there's a correlation between food price increase and frequencies of mention of food prices in social media discussions. And they found that when there's a food crisis in the world, and there is a correlation in a hike of discussions in social media. So I think they think they can use this as a prediction for future occurrence of for policy considerations. If this is one quite successful experiment. They also tried to look at social media discussions about sexual harassment at workplace, and the social media discussions, because it is an issue in Indonesia apparently. But they couldn't actually establish a correlation in this particular case. So I think this shows the importance of asking the right questions, okay, have the right, really algorithm, right, for analysis. You have the right partnership with the right, service providers, because it's not something you can do easily, and but you can definitely use social media more, and the mobile data more, right, and also, GPS information more. One thing again they try to look at now is, for example, how do you serve migrant population, right? So, but then again, the question is how do you anonymize the data, okay? Because you see, the same telephone making calls in different locations, right? You see the trends, the patterns of the migrant population. So how do you serve their needs, but also, protect privacy and so forth? So it's very interesting. I think it's a field for the UN.
Thank you very much.